Hi. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Neylon. I'm best known as an advocate of open access and open data, and my role within the DART project is to advise on the open data and open research aspects that are written into the original DART grant. I'm sorry I can't be with you today, but Ant's asked me to record a short video about what I would have otherwise have said. The proposal was written with strong emphasis on making the data and the process publicly available and as close to real time, both as an example of best practice for other multidisciplinary projects in the general archaeology domain, and also to really help in the public engagement side. It was perceived by the referees as one of the strengths of the proposal. When talking to you about the benefits of these kind of open approaches, you might expect me to focus on the community benefits, the public good, the overall benefits to society, and these are all good things, but they aren't going to be enough for you. You know, and I know, that a warm feeling 2 years down the track isn't enough to justify the extra work and potential risks involved in making your data available before publication, of putting designs and software up on the web, or of perhaps publishing in places that wouldn't be the first choice for your discipline. All of us as researchers are working our butts off just to keep our heads above water. So I'm not going to appeal to your community spirit or goodwill, but I'm going to appeal to naked self-interest. The funding world has changed. To stay afloat, you need this project to generate results that can be published as soon as possible. You need to get those out and in the right places for archaeologists, engineers and computer scientists, all of which are different. So you've got this problem of publishing in multiple different places. You need more resources than, frankly, you have to make this happen. And at the same time, you need to raise your profile, whether you're the PI, co-investigator, or one of the students, to maximise the chances of getting the next grant, the next promotion, or your next job. You need to generate media coverage and awareness of how great this work is, both within and beyond your own disciplines. And you need the funders to love you. And you know what that means. That means the dreaded I word, impact. Actually, it's more serious than that. You need to provide your funders with good stories that they can sell to their political masters. All of the funders of this project took an absolute hammering in the comprehensive spending review, despite it being a relatively good settlement. Next time round, the case for increasing the funding, for sustainable funding for the future, really needs to be watertight. The consequences of another round of overall research spending going down is going to be dire. And making that happen means more stories about impact. So what do we mean by impact? And it's more than just economic impact, and it's more than just being reported in the local and national news. It's about your research outputs being used by other researchers, by the wider community, by industry, and by members of the public. The use might be to support further academic research, to directly inform business decisions or industrial development. It might be in education, or it might be simply in exciting people about the cultural heritage that's around them. Ultimately, impact is really a measure of how much the outputs of the project are reused. How much influence have you really had? Has the project actually made a difference? We know that tough times are ahead, and it's the next grant that's going to make the difference to you sinking or swimming. Not the one that you're putting in at the end of the project, but the one you're applying for in the next 12 months. For the students, the papers and presentations that come after the end of the project aren't going to be any use to you, because by then you already need to have the next job. It's the contacts and the publications and the profile that you build up over the next 18 months that are going to get you that next job. So how do we make that happen? The point of open approaches, not the warm, fuzzy feeling reasons, but the really hard-headed, pragmatic ones, is to maximise the potential usefulness of your research and to maximise the speed and efficiency with which it can be reused. In the first instance, effective sharing of data and processes as soon as you possibly can after they're collected is the most efficient way of actually ensuring that you yourself will be able to understand your own records in 6 months' time. If someone else can find and make sense of your data today, and you can be pretty confident that you're going to be able to find and understand it in 6 months' time. That's not a trivial point. Data management is hard, and it's really best done up front, but usually there's really little incentive to do it, and so masses of time gets wasted when it comes the time to publish, and you've got to figure it all out again. The second way in which openness maximises impact is when people reuse your outputs. Not a couple of citations in an academic paper in 4 years' time. Well, that helps. But actually really uses the data or the software or the systems that you've created. This is real direct impact. This is a demonstration that the project has made a difference, that the investment is worthwhile. And if people do reuse your outputs, your data, your software, your systems, they're going to come and ask you about them. They're going to put your name on publications. They're going to acknowledge that input. Now, there are risks here. There are risks that data gets used without acknowledgement, that others might publish first. But equally, there are risks in not making it available as well. There are risks of contacts that you don't make, of papers that never get published, and potential impact that isn't realised. I know of plenty of examples where data's been stolen and experiments have been replicated because of discussions and informal communication. But I'll be honest, I don't know of any single example of data theft without full acknowledgement and a collaboration for data or software that was properly and effectively shared. Because if it's public, it's verifiable and it's citable, and not acknowledging that you've used something that's publicly, freely available is professional misconduct at the end of the day. The worst case scenario is actually that you put in the extra work needed to do this and you get relatively little out of it. Even having your work stolen is not the worst case, because you can demonstrate that it was in the public domain, that it did get used, and you can show that your data and your research actually had an impact. The best case scenario is that the work you do actually gets used because you're focused on making sure that it can. These are the papers that wouldn't otherwise ever have been written, invitations to write or speak that you wouldn't otherwise ever have got. I can easily point to 10 papers, 15 international keynotes on my CV, as well as 4 collaborations that just wouldn't have happened if I hadn't adopted these kind of practices. The third way that openness will maximise your impact is a bit cynical, but it's through publicity. It's still possible to get wider media and specialist coverage of your research when you're using open approaches because it's unusual. Now, this matters. It's not always comfortable to admit it, but getting wider exposure is good for you. It's good for your profile within your own institution. And it's good for the project because it provides more opportunities to demonstrate real public engagement with the wider community. DART makes a really great story. It's a multidisciplinary project trying to understand something that can actually be explained to any member of the public. It's got great kit from the human scale sensors up to satellites. You've got data analysis and integration, and all of these different aspects of it will appeal to different sorts of people in different ways. You combine that with the story of a project that's configured to change and really demonstrate best practice in data sharing, in fact, to change the way a whole field works. And this is the kind of story that research councils want to feature to their political masters. It's the kind of stories that your institution wants to tell to its community, to its members, and also to incoming students. And maybe it's the kind of story that you want to tell in 10 years about how you were at the vanguard of a change, the thing that took British research out of the doldrums and actually made it great again. You don't adopt open approaches because they give you a warm feeling. We don't have the luxury for that. Very few people have the energy, the resources, or the sheer will to make that happen. You adopt them because it will give you an advantage. In today's world, we all need every advantage we can get.